What is going on, everybody? I am back today to talk about a movie that I have wanted to watch for quite some time now. And this movie was actually recommended to me by my friend Nate, who just gives me incredible movie recommendations consistently. I have the highest respect for his opinion in movies, and he is a huge fan of Michael Haneke. I'm also a huge fan of Michael Haneke, and for some reason, I've never gotten around to watching this movie before, and I'm not 100% sure why, but every time we talk, he's like, have you watched this movie yet? And he'll constantly mention this one. So I finally got around to checking this film out, and every film I've seen in Michael Haneke's catalog so far has been incredible. I've seen Funny Games, The Piano Teacher, and Cachet, and I've loved all three of those movies. I think they are all phenomenal, and they showcase just what a talented director Haneke is, because he can really attach himself onto any genre and just really create a powerful message that will shake you to your very core. And that's what I really am impressed with him as a filmmaker. And this movie I know is very heavy subject matter wise. Nate warned me before I went in to watch this movie, like, hey, this is really heavy, it's a brutal watch, but I was excited to watch it either way. And the film I'm going to be discussing with you today is Amour. Amour is directed by Michael Haneke. George and Anne are in their 80s. They are cultivated retired music teachers. Their daughter, who is also a musician, lives abroad with her family. One day, Anne has a stroke, and the couple's bond of love is severely tested. So, I was very excited to watch this movie, knowing how heavy and deep it is. And this movie is absolutely incredible. It's probably one of my favorite films in Michael Haneke's catalog. This movie destroyed me. It made me question my very existence, think about the finality of death, brought up a lot about existential dread, just truly covers a wide array of topics that can seem very somber and depressing, but I think truly at its core, it is one of the most beautiful showcasings of love towards another human being I've ever seen, to where I just cried so many times during this movie. I lost count. It just really, whenever a movie can move me this much emotionally, I know that a director has done a phenomenal job, and I'm excited to talk about this movie in detail with you today. So, Amour tells the story of George and Anne, and we see them early on just living their day to day lives in their apartment together, spending lots of time together. They go to this performance early on in the film, and we see the two of them having breakfast one morning, and Anne sits down at the table, and George is talking to her, and she just completely freezes up and stops. She's just deadpan staring at him, and he thinks she's messing with him at first, and then she's like, what's wrong, and he's asking her a ton of questions. She won't respond. He ends up getting up, trying to get clothes on to get ready, and when he comes back in the room, she's totally fine. And they take her to the doctor, and they find out that she's had a stroke and that she's having these medical issues that could be very severe. And so the two of them start having conversations about her health. You can tell that she's worried about it, but she understands she's getting older, that things are going to happen. But that stroke turns into another stroke, and things progressively get worse. And the entirety of the film is these two characters who have been together in a marriage for so long, who love each other very deeply, dealing with the fact that they are getting older and trying to see how they're going to move forward to live the rest of their lives. And if Anne passes away, what will George do in his future? So, as I said, this movie is incredibly depressing. It's very hard to watch, but I think it's also a very important watch. And I think it's a movie that if you don't like it, you probably didn't like it because it struck a chord in a way that you feel the reality of the finality of life. And I think Michael Haneke does something here that I have not seen a lot of other filmmakers accomplish. I feel like the closest thing I've seen to this in recent years was Gaspar Noé's Vortex, which is very different because that's looking at dementia, but it's looking at something that can happen to a lot of people, especially when they get into their older ages. Everything about this movie is exceptional. For starters, the performances here are phenomenal. You can really feel the time of the relationship that these two have had together and just the love that each one has for another. There's so much silent communication in this movie through a facial expression or a touch, just like when one would enter a room and look at another one. You could feel the years of the passion that the two of these people had for one another, and that despite their old age and things not being the same as they once were, that love still exists in a very palpable way. And it takes two really incredible actors to be able to showcase that level of love. I really appreciate the attention to detail and the cinematography in this film. It all pretty much takes place in this apartment. We don't really leave it very frequently. And it might be weird to say, but it almost creates a sense of claustrophobia in moments where it's like you're kind of trapped in here. There's not really much else you can do, especially once Anne's mobility starts to get more and more limited to where she can't really get around without a wheelchair. She needs someone constantly watching her and supervising her. And paying that much attention with the camera work creates an environment that locks you as a viewer into this situation. And as I said, the thing that everyone in this world has a hard time coming to terms with is the fact that each and every one of us will die someday. And what makes that so difficult is that death is uncertain. None of us know what is going to happen after we die. It's just, you have no religion, no human, no anyone can tell you with certainty what is going to happen when you die. And so that creates this fear and this anxiety for so many people, but it also impacts relationships. And knowing when you get with someone or you spend time with someone, there will be an end to that in one way, shape, or form. And, you know, relationships can end in a number of ways, but there are relationships that stand that test of time. And seeing this group of people who realize that their relationship is going to come to an end because one of them is getting ill, and Anne's character essentially letting George know, like, I don't want to go back to a hospital. I don't want to deal with these types of things. And I also don't want to be a burden to you. And it's heartbreaking to watch this character be like, my falling ill is going to make your life more difficult. And despite you getting older, I don't want you to have to sit around and take care of me and wait on me hand and foot when I'm not even going to be experiencing life because I'm going to be bedridden. And it was heartbreaking to watch. I cannot imagine looking at the person that you love the most and seeing them essentially just say, let me die. And it's so difficult to watch and to sit through. But Haneke does a brilliant job showcasing George's love for his wife and what he is willing to do to take care of her. And he hires these different care workers and they don't treat her the best. And he's there to fight for her in an instance. And what really shook me about this movie and what really made me emotional about this movie is he never cries once in the entire movie. He does not cry. He never breaks. And there's something that's so haunting to me about that I don't think will ever leave me, is that, like, he doesn't feel that he can be emotional. And when his daughter comes over and she breaks completely and totally, he feels like he has to be the one to stand up and be strong and say, this is just how life happens. And it's unfortunate. And you can see the pain in his face, but he never lets it out. And that is just a remarkable performance, in my opinion, to showcase someone. There's a scene in this movie that got me more than anything, which is probably one of the most powerful emotional scenes in this entire film that is so quiet. But it's when Anne first starts getting very sick. They have to bring in this, like, special bed for her. And he flips over in the middle of the night and there's this long take sequence of him just watching her sleep. And just, like, thinking about it right now, it's like stirring up a lot of emotions, where he loves her so much and he's not willing to cope with the inevitability of what's going to happen to her. And I think Michael Haneke, you know, it's really interesting because I think about Funny Games and Cachet and The Piano Teacher, where Cachet and Funny Games, they're very much like suspense thrillers, psychological thrillers with really great character writing. And the Piano Teacher is like a psychosexual drama that really is hard hitting, but so much of it has like shock value and there's these really intense sequences. This is the most beautifully empathetic film that Haneke has made. It's speaking volumes to relationships and the love that one can have for another person. And I was just blown away at all of the little nuances that he was able to capture in certain sequences. And this movie is 2 hours long. And some of the complaints I've seen about this movie is some people say, oh, it overstays its welcome. It's like, no, this movie is intentionally the length that it is because it's the reality of it. Like, you don't get to escape this situation. You don't get to get away from it. And he spends time showing things like just moving her from a chair to a bed or getting her from place to place or watching him have to feed her, because that's what happens. That's the reality of the situation. And it makes that third act punch all the more powerful. And this is a movie that I will never forget for the rest of my life. It's a movie that I definitely want to revisit in the future, but I'm going to have to be very mentally and emotionally ready to experience that again, because it is a very tough watch. But it's a remarkable film. It is a movie that I cannot recommend enough to you. And please watch this if you've never seen it before. So have you seen Amour? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought. I thought this movie was incredible. I have nothing but positive things to say about it. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.